So apparently there is a new notification function. If you truly want to watch everything I release without the risk of missing any of my videos, click on the bell icon below. Thank you! Hello everyone and welcome! With all the Shadow Isles stories coming from left and right, I wouldn't be surprised if most of you were confused about the actual timeline. That's why today we will compress everything we know about the Shadow Isles into this video. Obviously I will skip a lot of details, so in case you are interested in more in-depth story, feel free to click on the links as they appear on the screen. So without further ado, let's get into the full story of the Shadow Isles. The whole story started very long time ago. During these times, Mordekaiser ruled over the lands of Eastern Valoran. At the time, he was a living being. In fact, he was one of the greatest warlords of all times. He was called the Warlord King because he wasn't just commanding his armies, he fought with them. Mordekaiser met his fate after a long and bloody day of battle. He died on top of a mountain of corpses, laughing even as he was pierced by arrows, swords and spears. He promised he would come back for them. As a celebration, the enemy burned Mordekaiser's body, reducing it to nothing but a pile of blackened armor and bones. As the celebrations ended and the victors moved on, Mordekaiser's followers stole the bones and the armor and used it to perform their dark magics. They tried to bring back their king, and they succeeded. A dark shade rose from Mordekaiser's remains, leaving the skeleton behind. The blackened armor slammed into place as the final puzzle piece of the necrotic resurrection. Mordekaiser lived again, but above that, he was immortal. Every time he died, his servants simply brought him back as his skeleton. As long as the skeleton was whole, Mordekaiser's dark reign was endless. That's why he built a stronghold known as the Immortal Bastion to protect his remains. One day, the monks of the hidden land called the Blessed Isles infiltrated the bastion and stole Mordekaiser's skull and hid it deep within their lands to make sure the dark times were over. At the same time, the armies of Valoran united to bring Mordekaiser down for the last time. It took hundreds, if not thousands of lives, but eventually the Immortal Bastion was overrun and Mordekaiser slain. Ever since that day, the Dark Servants roamed the world trying to find the lost skull. It seemed Mordekaiser's reign was truly over. Years rolled into decades, decades to centuries, and new empires were created. One of these empires was ruled by a powerful king with the help of Callista, his personal guardian. One day his queen got poisoned, and even though they called for every priest and alchemist from the entire kingdom, no one was able to help her. Out of desperation, he sent Callista on a mission to find a cure, while he stayed with the queen. Because Callista couldn't leave the king unprotected, she called for Hecarim, the lord of the Knights of the Iron Order, to keep an eye on the king. Callista traveled the world and eventually stumbled upon the Blessed Isles. There the monks told her to bring the queen to the islands where they would cleanse her body. With that, Callista quickly traveled back to her kingdom, happy to bring the good news. But when she arrived, she saw nothing but ruins and madness around. While she was gone, Hecarim hungered for power and did everything the king asked for. And since she was gone for too long, the king locked himself in his chamber with the now rotting corpse of his wife. He slowly lost himself to paranoia and madness and ordered Hecarim to slay anyone who would try to separate him from his queen. It didn't take long and hundreds fell beneath Hecarim's blade. Upon seeing what had become of her kingdom, Callista decided to keep what she had found secret from everyone. For that, the king imprisoned her. She sat silent for days until Hecarim visited her cell. He told her that the only way to bring peace to the king and these lands were to bring the queen back. To that, Kalista agreed, and guided the king together with the Knights of the Iron Order to the Blessed Isles. There, the king shouted at the monks and ordered them to bring back his wife. They refused, since toying with life and death was against the balance of the world. That got the king mad, and he ordered Kalista to slay their leader, something Kalista would never do. Instead, she called on Hecarim to stand with her. But for Hecarim, this was yet another chance to prove his loyalty and gain even more power. So he drove his spear through her back and killed the rest of the monks. After a short battle, one of the monks surrendered and showed them how to resurrect the queen. But when they did, she was nothing but a walking, rotting corpse begging to be released from her agony. Upon seeing what the king had done to his beloved wife, he decided to end their lives and bind them together for all eternity. He released a spell that was supposed to end everything, but it was empowered by nearby magical artifacts guarded in catacombs below by the cruel warden called Thresh. Even Mordekaiser's skull was caught in the spell. The final explosion devastated the lands and created something known as the Black Mist. A shade covering these lands, transforming all living beings into abomination and turning the Blessed Isles into the Shadow Isles. Hecarim tried to run, but he was fused together with his horse and turned into a colossus known as the Shadow of War. Kalista was raised from the dead, swearing to take down the betrayer. And since the skull was revealed to the world again, the Dark Servants sensed its magic, collected it, and brought back their Dark Lord. Only 2 living beings endured in these lands. The first one is a monk called Yorick. He now lives only because of a holy vial hanging on his neck. The other one is Maokai, the first spirit of nature that covered these lands with magical trees. He survived by drinking holy waters from below the surface with his roots. The Shadow Isles quickly became a legend and fake religions started building around it. Elise, for example, was transformed by combination of the venom from the Shadow Isles spider god and a wound from LeBlanc's magical dagger. Together with LeBlanc, then they created a fake religion to deliver life offerings to the spider god in exchange for eternal youth. Then there is Karthus, a boy fascinated by death that grew into a cultist that eventually sated his obsession with afterlife after willingly traveling to the Shadow Isles and surrendering his body. But from all of these stories, one thing is certain. Either the living or the dead, no matter the form, no one ever returns from these lands. And that leaves us with one last question. What is the Harrowing? We don't know a lot about it, but from what we do know is that it's a day in a year in which the Black Mist is free to roam the world under the moonlight. It travels as far as it can before the moon hides again, but that only gives the mist a chance to attack the nearby lands, among them Bilgewater. That's why every year the citizens of Bilgewater prepare for the arrival of the Black Mist and they pray to survive the night. And they usually do, with the help of the priestess of Nagakeburos, known as Ilawi. And that is pretty much it for the Shadow Isles. I skipped a lot of details in some of the stories and I entirely skipped Evelyn since her story doesn't tell us anything at all. She is the last character that is still shrouded in mystery. But that's it for this video. Thank you all so much for being here with me and supporting me in what I do. Feel free to rate the video or comment down below. Follow me on Twitter or Facebook for my occasional thoughts and some pictures of Eddie. And as long as it lasts, there's my PO box as well. So again, thank you all so much for watching and thank you come again. So there is one more bigger video that I'm working on, which may or may not be talking about the solo queue and some of the things that the solo queue gave us that most of you didn't even realize. And since they are changing the jungle in the next pre-patch for the Season 7, there is a lot that I can talk about with the flowers that I think are the step into the right direction. Let's be honest, we need this diversity in the games. We need every game to be as different as possible, and these flowers are definitely going to, I don't want to say succeed, just in case they don't, but they will succeed at their initial goals. So let's hope there is more to it. So see you in the next one.